Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar today. Let's get started.
Hi, my name is Geni Peters.
And I'm just going to go over some housekeeping stuff just before Jenny gets started. So housekeeping, all participants are muted. For technical issues, please use the chat function. Any questions can be submitted to the chat question function boxes, and a recording of this webinar will be sent out to all registrants within 24 hours after the webinar is finished. The traditional land acknowledgement. Eco-Canada and myself would like to recognize today and every day the land we are on. Eco-Canada is committed to reconciliation starts with acknowledging our honor and privilege to live and work within this Indigenous territory. Eco-Canada acknowledges the traditional territories and the oral practices of these Indigenous nations. So who is Eco-Canada? A little bit about us. Eco-Canada is the steward for the Canadian environmental workforce across all industries. We champion end-to-end career of an environmental professional. We not only train and certify professionals, but we also help identify and address labor market gaps. Our efforts promote and derive responsible, sustainable economic growth to ensure that environmental care and best practices is a priority. Now I'm going to hand it over to Jenny. Take it away, Jenny.
Good morning. So as I said before, my name is Geni Peters. I am the Director of Research at Eco-Canada, and I am pleased today to have so many people gathered to find out a little bit more about the environmental workforce and what's happening to it and what we project is going to happen to it over the next 10 years or so. To start off with, we have a report on our website. It's available for free to anybody who's interested, which summarizes the information that I've got in this document, in this webinar. We've also got some very specific provincial reports as well. We've got one for Ontario, one for Quebec, and one for Atlantic Canada. So if you're interested in those particular areas, you can dive a little bit deeper into those reports. To start off with today, I think the first thing we want to do is to define what an environmental worker is, or how does Eco-Canada define what an environmental worker is. So we take it as a very broad definition. We looked at the environmental workforce as any worker, regardless of what industry they're in or occupation they're in, as long as the work that they do helps support the goals of environmental protection, prudent resource management, and sustainability. When we look at environmental workers, we think of them as in two different categories. The first category we refer to as core environmental workers. These are workers who have very specific environmental competencies that are related to the work that they do. So they have to have knowledge of environmental regulations or specific technologies or processes that lead to environmental outcomes. They're involved in impact assessment, they're involved in sustainability planning, climate change planning, those sorts of areas. They can work in any industry. They can work in public administration, they can work in oil and gas or forestry or finance. As long as the work that they're doing requires some environmental competencies, they're going to be considered a core environmental worker. We also have a sizable workforce of individuals who are contributing to environmental goods and services organizations. So these are companies that are producing environmental goods, solar panels, wind turbine farms, aquaculture specialists. And these companies themselves have a wide variety of different types of employees. They have business development professionals, they have HR professionals, they have administrative assistants, they have truck drivers, and all of those different types of individuals would be considered environmental workers because they support the environmental outcomes of the organization that they work for. So this is our broad definition of environmental work, and that's what we're going to be talking about more as we go into our forecast going forward. So let's go into the next slide. There's a second way that we categorize the environmental workforce, and that's based on the types of fields or specializations that they have within their work. We have, again, those three broad categories I mentioned before: environmental protection, resource management, and environmental sustainability. And within each of those categories, we've broken it down into some subsectors or specializations that individuals might have in terms of the work that they're doing. So within environmental protection, we've got people who are working towards protecting air quality, water quality, people who are assessing site damage and doing reclamation and remediation, people who are involved in waste management, and environmental health and safety. In the second bubble, the resource management side of things, we've got a wide variety of different types of resources that we need to manage as a country. Energy resources, in this case, we're focusing mainly on energy efficiency activities and renewable energy activities. The natural resource management specialization includes mining and forestry and agriculture and other types of industries that are terrestrial. And then the fisheries and wildlife includes the aquatic arena. Environmental sustainability is our third category, and that is a category of workers who may not be deliberately or they may not be contributing to environmental protection or resource management directly, but the work that they do is integral to the environmental goals that we have. These are people who are working in strategic sustainability, ESG, climate change planning, greenhouse gas emissions accounting, policy and legislation professionals, people who are working towards ensuring that the policies and legislations help us achieve the goals that we want, and developing regulations and ensuring regulations are met based on those policies. We've got lots of people working in research and development. Environmental work is largely innovative. We're trying to come up with solutions to the problems that we see in the environment. So we have a lot of people who are working in developing new types of technology, new types of processes, and who are investigating the essence of the issues that we're dealing with so that they can come up with better solutions. We also have people who are in education and training, university professors, college instructors, post-secondary trainers, those sorts of individuals who are helping to build the workforce, to train the workforce in the environmental sector going forward. And then we also have communications and public awareness. So we have a lot of people who are out there trying to collaborate with different groups, trying to bring different groups together, trying to make the public more aware of both the issues and the solutions that are being developed so that more effective policy could be developed going forward. And next slide. So at EcoCanada, for the last few years, we've been using a statistical model to forecast, well, to estimate how big the environmental workforce is and to forecast what's going to happen to the environmental workforce going forward. The most recent efforts were published in March of 2024, and that's a forecast from 2024 to 2033. Looking at that total environmental workforce, which again includes the core environmental workers and the environmental goods and services sector workers, we estimate that there are about 1.4 million workers across Canada who are contributing to environmental protection, prudent resource management, or sustainability across Canada. That's about 7% of Canada's workforce. And that's quite a growth from our last estimate, which was about 3.5% of the workforce across Canada. So over the last 4 years or so, we've seen a lot of government programs and a lot of incentive programs designed to help promote and foster an innovative environment to create more jobs in the environmental sector and to achieve our environmental goals. And that's reflected in the workforce that we see overall. Looking at our forecast, we are projecting that we're going to have about 9% growth across the sector between now and 2033. And that's about equivalent to the growth rate projected for Canada as a whole, so Canada's entire workforce. In the environmental workforce, that boils down to about 136,000 to 190 new jobs are going to be created. These are brand new jobs that don't exist now. They're going to exist by 2033. We also have a substantial number of job openings that are going to come available for new workers because of the retirements that we're going to see over the next 10 years. We're anticipating a 24% retirement rate over the next 10 years, so about 2.4% of the population of the environmental workforce is going to retire each year. And we're going to need to replace them with 344,220 new environmental workers going forward. So when we add all that up, we find that we're going to have about 480,500 environmental job openings, or we're going to need about 480,500 environmental workers by 2033, more than we have right now. So that's going to take us up to about 1.5 or 1.6 million workers across Canada. Now, I also mentioned that we break down the workforce into the total workforce, the core workforce, and the environmental goods and services workforce. Now I want to take a closer look at that core environmental workforce. These are people who are going to require specific knowledge or skills or competencies related to environmental work directly. They can be, again, they can be in any industry across Canada, and they can be in any occupation. It's just that their job requires them to have very specific environmental knowledge. When we look at our estimate, we estimated that in 2024, or this year, we have about 453,680 environmental workers that we would consider core environmental workers. And that's about 2% of the overall workforce in Canada. So it's still a sizable number. We're anticipating 28,100 new jobs are going to be created. That growth rate is a little bit slower than what we see in the overall population or the overall workforce. And that could be a function of a number of different things. One is that we're going to see potentially a manufacturing workforce decline with the assumption that we're going to see some productivity growth in the manufacturing sector going forward. We also have job openings due to retirements, 113,030 job openings projected. It's a 25% retirement rate, and with 141,140 net job openings. So what that tells us is we're going to have, for core workers, people who are trained with environmental knowledge and skills and competencies, we're going to have to replace about 31% of the number that we have right now. In the workforce. And that's a sizable amount of training that we need to do in order to promote the environmental workforce going forward. Next slide. So now that we've looked at the Canada outlook overall, let's take a look at what environmental employment looks like across Canada in terms of provinces and territories. So on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see the Canada numbers, 1.4 million with a 7% Enviro share, where the Enviro share is our way of denoting the proportion of the overall workforce that is doing environmental work. If we take a look at the provinces, we're going to see that the provincial distribution of the environmental workforce is largely mirrors the population of the various different provinces. So we see that Ontario has the largest number of environmental workers, 500,300, followed shortly thereafter by Quebec and British Columbia and Alberta. So the four big provinces have the most environmental workers. When we look at the Enviro share, however, we see that Alberta actually has the highest Enviro share of all of the provinces, with about 9% of the workforce engaged in environmental work, about 8.1% in Saskatchewan and British Columbia, and then down to 7% and 6% across the eastern portion of the country. We also see a high proportion of workers involved in environmental work in the territories, which I think all of those things, those higher territorial numbers and the higher Western Canada numbers, reflect the intensity of resource extraction in those areas. And when we're doing resource extraction, we want to do it as sustainably as possible, which requires environmental workers in order to ensure that sustainability and that the resources are produced in an environmentally friendly manner. Next slide. When we look at the hiring forecast, again, we see that largely the The four big provinces have got the highest net job openings across the country. Ontario has 56,000 new jobs created, 125,800 retirement job openings, for a total of 181,800 net job openings across the country. And that's about 36% of the overall employment of environmental workers in Ontario. We see that percentage of environmental employment varies across province, with some of the higher numbers in Alberta and New Brunswick, British Columbia and Ontario, and some of the lower numbers in the territories and Quebec, where we're going to see slightly less in terms of either retirement numbers or new jobs created. Next slide. And as I mentioned before, we also break down the jobs by environmental specialization. Now, the one thing to note about environmental specializations is that an individual could very well be working in multiple specializations at the same time. So, for example, an individual could be working in water quality related to energy. They could be working in policy and legislation related to waste management. They could be working in education and training, specifically in the area of air quality. All of those different combinations are possible. So when we look at the net job openings by specialization, they don't total up to the net job openings that we have across the country overall. They're going to be more than the net job openings we have overall. When we take a look at the specializations, we see sustainability work is really up there in terms of the number of workers that we've got involved in that, followed by the natural resource management. Again, that's the mining, forestry, and agriculture primarily, followed by fisheries and wildlife, and then environmental health and safety. Next slide. Let's take a bit of a turn here, and let's take a look at green jobs by industry. And here I want to take a look at not only the size of the workforce in each of these industries, but I also want to take a look at some of the top occupations in each industry. What's interesting is that each industry has its own unique environmental occupations that are important or critical for the work that they're doing. So we'll start with professional, scientific, and technical services. That's the largest industry employer of environmental workers across Canada, with 204,180 environmental workers in 2024. And some of the top occupations in that industry are civil engineers, other professional engineers, and lawyers. Across Canada, the professional, scientific, and technical services sector, that's the industry that includes environmental consulting companies, engineering consulting companies, architecture companies, law firms, accounting firms. So those are the types of services that these companies provide. The second largest employer of environmental workers by industry is the public administration sector, and that includes the federal, the provincial, municipal, and local governments. With 184,570 environmental workers across Canada, we see that the top jobs there include other managers in public administration, so a wide variety of different types of program managers in public administration are included there, as well as police officers and firefighters as important contributors to environmental protection across Canada. In the construction sector, we see 144,250 workers with home building and renovation managers, construction managers, and electricians at the top of the list in terms of the occupations that we need in high demand. Now that makes perfect sense given the emphasis that we're making on ensuring that the building stock in Canada becomes more energy efficient, both in terms of new buildings being built to a higher standard and in terms of retrofits of older home stock as well. We also see those electricians in high demand with all of the move towards electric vehicles and electrification in terms of heat pumps and other types of electric technology. We're going to need a lot more electricians to ensure that we've got the infrastructure in our homes and in our buildings and in our industries in order to be able to use that electricity effectively. And then we'll look next to the manufacturing sector. In manufacturing, we estimate 133,340 environmental workers. Top of those lists include manufacturing managers, construction millwrights and industrial mechanics, and supervisors in mineral and metal processing. That last group has a lot to do with the need for EV and EV battery supply chain activities. So critical mineral mining and production, and then processing of those critical minerals as well. Next slide. 4 more sectors that we're going to look at before we move on to the next category. Let's take a look at utilities next. So utilities include electric utilities, water utilities, gas utilities, and we've got about 46,930 environmental workers in the utility sector. Many of those are water and waste treatment plant operators, utility managers, and utility maintenance workers. In the administrative and support, waste management and remediation services sector, we see the 42,200 environmental workers in 2024. And the top jobs for environmental workers are public works and maintenance laborers, contractors and supervisors in landscaping, and again, water and waste treatment plant operators. The last 2 sectors are natural resource sectors, the mining, quarrying, and oil and gas extraction sector, where we have 39,580 environmental workers. And the top environmental jobs, or top jobs for environmental workers, right now are petroleum engineers, underground production and development miners. Again, that goes back to the critical minerals work that we're doing, as also sustainable mining, and then managers in natural resources production and fishing. And last sector is agriculture, forestry, fishing, and hunting, with 36,190 workers. Top jobs include managers in agriculture, forestry technologists and technicians, and forestry professionals. All right, next slide. Again, looking at the hiring forecasts out into the future, we see that professional, scientific, and technical services, public administration, construction, and manufacturing have the highest number of job openings anticipated going forward across Canada. We also see some substantial job increases or openings available in educational services, transportation and warehousing, wholesale trade, and other services, except public administration. That's a category that includes a lot of installation and maintenance technologists. So people who are working in HVAC installation or in insulation of homes and repairs for heavy equipment and that sort of thing. So again, we're going to see growth across the sectors. Some of them have more robust growth, with public administration and transportation and warehousing having 42 and 41% of their environmental employment needing to be replaced over the next 10 years. With mining, quarrying, and oil and gas extraction, it's only 7%, which reflects, I think, the anticipated slowdown in environmental, in oil and gas extraction activity across Canada. Next slide. We can also look at green jobs based on the kind of job family that they fall into. And there are 6 top job families that I want to focus on here. The first one, the top job family for environmental workers or group of occupations, is in the natural and applied sciences and related occupations category, with 351,000 workers employed in 2024. The natural and applied sciences and related occupations category includes scientists, geologists, geographers, meteorologists, climatologists, chemists. It also includes engineers and engineering technologists and technicians, as well as IT professionals. So that's a heavy demand area for environmental workers. And a lot of that work comes down to assessing what's going on in the environment so that we can figure out what the real issues are, and then coming up with creative and effective solutions to those problems. A lot of that requires some scientific or engineering knowledge. The second largest category of workers, which may be unexpected, is the trades, transport, and equipment operators and related occupations, with 256,700 environmental workers across Canada. Now, these are individuals who we may not think of directly as environmental workers, but a lot of the work that they're doing is contributing to our environmental goals. So even though a carpenter who is working on a high-performance home, or an HVAC professional, or an insulator, or an electrician who's working on installing EV equipment, they may not consider themselves environmental workers, but from our perspective, they're doing environmental work. They're contributing to the environmental protection, resource management, and sustainability goals that we talked about earlier. So they are really in high demand, and we're actually seeing that there are going to be some shortages in that area as well. The next group is business, finance, and administration occupations. Of course, any business or organization has professionals like HR professionals, administrative assistants, accountants, finance people, business development experts. All of those individuals are required in order for the organization to succeed, and a lot of them are needed by small startups who are looking to build up their product into a marketplace in Canada or abroad, and also to oversee the work of the companies that are already invested in environmental goods and services. The next group includes occupations in education, law, and social and community and government services. So again, here we've got university professors, college instructors, lawyers, as well as natural and applied science policy professionals, so people who are working in the environmental policy space. And we've got 169,700 of those workers across Canada in 2024. The next group, the occupations in manufacturing and utilities. Again, that includes the wastewater and wastewater treatment professionals, the utilities managers, manufacturing, EV assembly workers, a wide variety of different types of manufacturing jobs there too. And then lastly, we've got natural resources, agricultural, and related production occupations. That includes individuals who are involved in oil and gas extraction, mining, forestry activities, not necessarily at the management level, but at the labor or operations level. And we've got about 51,200 of those workers across Canada. Next slide. Taking a look at the employment forecast to 2033, we see that again, just like we saw in the past, the natural and applied sciences and related occupations group has the highest number of job openings. The second highest number of job openings is going to be the business, finance, and administration occupations, with about 92,000 net job openings through 2033. Followed by the trades, transport, and equipment operators and related occupations. We're also seeing some sales and service occupations. Those could be individuals who are involved in wholesale trade, or individuals who are involved in retail trade of energy efficient appliances, and also health occupations, public health nurses, for example, and individuals who are working in occupational health and safety. Next slide. To take a look at some specific occupations that are in high demand in the environmental workforce, let's just take a look at the wide variety of different types of jobs that are in demand here. So at the top of the list are administrative officers with about 12,250 job openings and an enviro share of about 13%. That enviro share means that of all of the individuals across Canada who are working in a job that's considered an administrative officer, about 13% of those workers have environmental competencies or are contributing to the success of environmental organizations. The second largest group is the professional occupations and business management consulting, with an Enviro share of about 12% and net job openings close to 11,000. Civil engineers is third on our list. Now, civil engineers actually has a very high Enviro share with a 61% Enviro share, which reflects that about 61% of civil engineers across Canada are working towards environmental goals in one way or another. And taking a look down the list, we see construction managers on that list, construction managers being needed in order to ensure the environmental friendly building of industrial and commercial and residential buildings, as well as we've got some firefighters there down at the list, at the bottom of the list, with about 26% of firefighters contributing directly to environmental work in one way or another. Next slide. So I'd like to wrap up today with a little bit of an analysis of the shortages that we might be anticipating going forward. These shortages could have a significant impact on Canada's ability to achieve our environmental goals. And some of those include public administration roles, such as legislators and senior management in the public administration realm, as well as just overall middle managers in public administration. A number of them are engineers, including mechanical engineers, chemical engineers, mining, geological and petroleum engineers, industrial and manufacturing engineers, and metallurgical and material engineers. And all of those individuals are involved in the development of a lot of the new types of energy technology that we're interested in. The hydrogen technology, we need new hydrogen pipelines, we need hydrogen refineries, we need hydrogen processing. When it comes to the mining and geological and petroleum engineers, we want those critical minerals for EV batteries, like lithium, for example. And then again, the metallurgical and materials engineers are also involved in the processing and manufacturing of electric vehicle batteries. On the sort of home construction front, we see home buildings and renovation managers who are going to be responsible for those deep retrofits to our existing housing stock, and electricians who again are going to have to rewire our homes in order to ensure that we've got enough power to power our heat pumps and our electric vehicles moving forward. Again, we've got some officers. We've got some natural and applied science policy researchers, consultants, and program officers, as well as administrative officers we're going to see shortages of. We have some technologists and technicians that we're worried about, civil engineering technologists and technicians in particular, followed by electrical and electronics engineering technologists and technicians. Those individuals, again, are involved in the construction of energy efficient buildings, as well as the development of technology for innovative ways of using energy and reducing emissions. Last couple of groups, we've got professional occupations in business management consulting. We saw on the last slide that they were a high demand group with about 11,000 job openings over the next 10 years. And then professional occupations in advertising, marketing, and public relations are also anticipated to see shortages going forward. And then in the trade space, we're anticipating seeing shortages of construction millwrights and industrial mechanics, as well as welders and related machine operators. Now, these critical shortages, as I said before, could really have a significant impact on our ability to move our environmental goals forward in Canada. If we don't have the workers to do the deep energy retrofits and the lithium mining and the lithium processing and the electrical installations, then we're going to fall short of our environmental goals going forward. When we talk about solutions to these shortages, there are a lot of different ways that we can help address these shortages. One, of course, is that we have a lot of opportunity here to convey to these wide variety of different types of workers, if they are working in those occupations already, let them know that they are contributing to environmental goals. That may make that a more attractive type of occupation for new graduates going into the environment or going into the economy. Another study that we did that published in March of 2024 involved a survey of young graduates, college students, and other professionals who might be interested in the environmental workforce. We found that about 43% of workers were interested in environmental work, with some very positive perceptions of the environmental workforce. And a lot of them said that it just simply aligned with their interests in education. So we need to encourage more people to take some of these occupations seriously and to consider them as good career paths for career development and for supporting themselves going forward. So now I'm going to open it up to some questions.
Hey, Jenny, thanks for all that. Yeah, we got some couple questions here already, which is great. I'm just going to go back a little bit so we have the slide at the beginning just while we're going through those questions. Perfect. All right, so first question is, in terms of credentials, what about mechanical engineers? What are the chances to be hired in the area of environmental sustainability in the context of any project?
That's a good question. Mechanical engineers are considered to be core environmental workers to the extent that there is, I think, about 25% EnviroShare in the mechanical engineering sector. So although not all of the jobs in mechanical engineering are going to be related to environmental work, there is a substantial fraction of them that could be considered environmental work as well. So I think it's really just a matter of finding the organization that you are interested in contributing to and making the case that you're interested and capable and willing and to learn more about the environmental sector. Often when we find engineers who are looking to move to more sustainable work, one of the things we recommend is to do a little bit of research and learn a little bit about environmental policies and regulations, learn a little bit about impact assessment, because there's a high demand for impact assessment professionals with engineering backgrounds. Those are the individuals who are going out and identifying any potential environmental concerns in new industrial projects across Canada. And there are shortages of impact assessment professionals. So if that's an area that might be of interest to you, there are a number of environmental consulting companies that may be interested in talking to you about bringing your credentials into that space.
Awesome. On to the next question. What advice would you give to someone like me? I have 4 years experience with a public organization outside of Canada in environmental sustainability, health and safety, environmental assessment, energy, natural resources management, as well as water and air quality, but my degree is in chemistry. I am about to finish my PhD in chemistry at the University of Guelph, and I am looking for an opportunity that will assist me in transitioning to Canadian settings within the environmental sector based on my previous experience.
So you're going to be taking your credentials and tailoring them to the opportunities that you see. I think probably with a background in chemistry, there would be probably a lot of opportunities in the EV battery supply chain space. So if you're in Guelph, you're in Ontario, so I know that there is some EV battery manufacturing and processing going on there, or soon to be going on there. You could look at the hydrogen pipeline, hydrogen manufacturing processing space. There's the manufacture of bioplastics, a number of different companies involved in that as well, that I'm sure would be happy to have somebody with a background with a PhD in chemistry. I think the main thing to do is to emphasize that in addition to the technical skills that you have coming out of a PhD in chemistry, you want to emphasize any project management skills that you might have. A lot of environmental work is project work, and so project management is involved in every level of the job, regardless of whether you're the project manager or not. Knowing some project management skills is useful. Conveying how well you can work with individuals from other types of disciplines. So communication skills and teamwork skills, emphasizing those on a resume. And also focusing to a large extent on any leadership or management experience you might have, especially if you've got some experience under your belt. There are a lot of openings for managers or supervisors that are hard to fill right now. We just don't have enough environmental workers in that middle management space. So I would recommend that you've got your great technical skills, build on that with a little bit of environmental regulation knowledge and environmental policy knowledge, and then focus on a few of those industries that might be of particular interest to you, and just learn more about the types of companies that are involved in that, what types of work they're doing, and trying to see how you would fit into that space.
Awesome. On to the next question. As a newcomer from Hong Kong working in a multinational company for a focus on SBT and packaging, single-use plastics, any SBT network, single-use plastic network, seminar or talk can be found in Canada. Any certificate or professional body I need to apply if I would like to come back for these fields?
Oh, unfortunately, I just don't know the answer to that question. That is a little bit outside of my own wheelhouse. But if you wanted to email me at gpeters@eco.ca, I could have my team look into it and see if we can find some additional information for you.
Awesome, thanks for that, Jenny. Another question here. In terms of R&D, what specific areas are more flourishing? Any examples of R&D projects, please?
Well, the answer to that varies from year to year. There are a lot of startups out there that are developing new technology. Sometimes it's a refining of waste products. Another area is, again, in the development of hydrogen fuel cell technology. Carbon capture and storage is a big area of development in Canada, as well as the uses of other types of energy products. So I think that there's a lot of different areas to focus on. I think one thing you might want to check out is the Clean Tech 100. It's a list of the top 100 companies globally that are doing clean tech activities. These are going to be firms that are new, innovative, they're developing new technology and doing research and development. There are a number of those companies in Canada, so you might want to see if you can find out more about those organizations. And then, of course, there's also postgraduate work at the university level. So if you've got a PhD credential, then postgraduate work is another area where you could be involved in research.
Awesome. What role will AI play in the future of environmental careers?
That's a great question that we're still trying to figure out as well. AI is a big hot topic in Eco-Canada, as well as amongst the different types of firms that we work with. I think one area where we're going to see a lot of advances in AI, or a lot of use of AI and machine learning, is in the monitoring of sensors and the analysis of the data that's created by sensor monitoring. A lot of environmental activity involves going out and taking samples or using sensors to assess the state of the environment. And that data comes back, it's large data, and we can use that to, first of all, identify what the problems might be. They might help us identify any trends that are going forward that we've seen in the past, and then what might happen going forward, and then potentially come up with solutions as well. We're investigating AI at Eco-Canada to see what we can do to help support environmental consulting firms in particular to use AI to advance the types of assessments that they do and remediation activities as well. So I see a big role for AI going forward, and I would anticipate that anybody who wants to ensure their employment during the AI transition would be well advised to do a little bit of AI research. Don't become an AI expert necessarily unless you are really big into coding, but to know how AI works and how it interacts with various different types of research is probably going to be helpful for anybody who's looking for a job.
Awesome. Next question. When we look at the tables that show new job openings, retirements by job category, can you explain the last column where there's a percentage? What does that percentage refer to?
So that percentage takes the total number of net job openings that we had in the third column and divides that by the total number of workers in Canada. So for example, if we look at an occupation, say administrative officers, for example, when we divide the net job openings by the total number of workers, that tells us what proportion of that current workforce we're going to need to replace over the next 10 years. So when we're looking at 30%, that's a substantial amount of the current workforce that is going to need to be supplemented over the next 10 years. And that's a signal to us that there's going to be a lot of hiring activity in the marketplace going forward.
Next question here. Where do energy advisors fit into this? Is there a growing field?
So energy advisors are part of our energy efficiency workforce, and they often work for themselves. So there are a lot of energy advisors who are independent contractors who go out and do energy audits for homeowners, for example. But there are also there's also demand for energy auditors in environmental consulting companies that are working in sustainable building activities. There is a growing demand for energy auditors. I would say, however, that with the closing of the Greener Homes grant, I believe that's the name of the grant, this past February, there are a lot of energy auditors out there who were working to help meet the needs of the homeowners who are getting that grant. Now that that grant is gone, the demand from homeowners has diminished a little bit, and so there's going to be a little bit of a lull before we can find a new space for energy auditors going forward. But there is going to continue to be need for energy auditors, especially as the need for deep energy retrofits moves forward, because in order to find out what you need to do to your home, you need to find out how energy efficient your home is right now, and then you need to measure it after you've done the renovation in order to be able to satisfy the requirements of your finance and insurance teams.
Why is there still little jobs directly related to climate change? Examples, carbon capture, greenhouse gas, etc.
I think that's because it's really an emerging sector. We've got a number of companies who are taking the lead in emissions reporting. Oil and gas companies in particular are leaders in emissions reporting, methane and carbon dioxide emissions in particular. But beyond that, if we take a look at the retail space, for example, the Walmarts, the hospitality space, the hotels or the restaurants, there's not a lot of uptake in emissions reporting in those industries yet. The transportation sector is another area where emissions reporting is a little bit lacking. So it's as those different industries become more aware of the requirements for reporting, as the reporting requirements become stricter, and as these companies become more aware of the reporting requirements, you're going to see a higher demand for workers in that climate change mitigation and greenhouse gas emissions reporting space. But it really is, it's a slow process. I spoke to a fellow last year who does the consulting for large organizations, large multinational companies that are looking to start on emissions reporting. He mentioned that he spoke to a large franchise restaurateur. I won't mention which organization, but they're a multinational organization, and they had anticipated that they could just throw $150,000 at a consultant, get them to do all of the emissions reporting for their company, and then that would be done. And he had to explain to them that no, there is a whole lot more involved in emissions reporting. It's going to take a substantial staff of consultants or in-house staff, as well as a lot of money in order to be able to do that emissions reporting correctly. So there are a lot of organizations out there who just simply haven't started on that path yet.
Next question here. What has EcoCanada seen in terms of what the largest barriers to entering the sustainable workforce?
Well, I think one of the challenges that employers have is that they have, they're dealing with a shifting sand, let's put it that way. Their marketplace is changing quite quickly. Consultants, contractors, a wide variety of different types of firms, they're exploring new technology, new processes, new ways of doing things. They're taking risks that they haven't taken before. And often they're a little hesitant to employ people full time until they've got their feet under them. So there's a lot of contract work out there, a lot of project-based work or short-term work out there, which is a challenge for somebody who's looking for a full-time permanent job. We also find that employers are looking for workers who have a wide range of different types of skills. They want the technical skills, and they want technical skills that are up to date, but they also want the project management skills. They want their workers to be adaptable and resilient. They want their workers to be good leaders. They want their workers to be good team players, good communicators. So there's a lot that they're asking of employees, and yet they're still having challenges finding all of those skills within within the workforce that they're searching for. Another issue is that once an individual has gotten their foot in the door, they're often poached by other companies in the same industry. So there's a lot of competition for the same workforce and not a lot of openings for new workers who need to be trained into that space. And as long as employers are hard pressed to meet their own deadlines, they're going to have a hard time hiring workers that they need to invest some time and training into.
Awesome. Next question. Do you have any advice for recent graduates entering the workforce with no work experience? I have a degree in environmental studies, but no work experience, making it difficult to get a job.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are a couple of things that I would recommend. One is that you take a look at the wage funding opportunities that EcoCanada has available for young new graduates who are looking for work for their first job in the environmental workforce. Our wage funding is an opportunity for an employer to test out an employee at a lower salary, because the government is going to pay some of that salary as well. So that having that as part of your offer for a job, going to a host and saying, look, I can provide you with all of my qualifications, and I can do it at a lower cost than you would have to pay somebody else because of the wage subsidy, that's a great incentive. Another thing to think about is, are there ways that you can get some work experience through volunteering, working with an enterprise, a nonprofit enterprise or a charity or some other organization that's involved in the environmental space that you're interested in, and getting your foot in the door that way. That also has the advantage of getting you into that network where you can meet new people who are also involved and might have knowledge about the environmental workforce in that space. One of the things that we note is that in Canada, networking is the #1 way that people get jobs. It's more frequent that you're going to get a job because of somebody you know, or somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, that you're going to get a job through an online posting, for example. Don't be necessarily too ambitious if you don't have any work experience. Just do what you can in order to build up some of those additional skills. Take some low-cost project management courses to learn a little bit more about project management so that you can speak to that. Get involved in different types of volunteer activities, as I said before, and just try to take advantage of leveraging any skills that you do have. If you've worked at any place, whether it's an environmental organization or not, you will have developed some skills that you can market as part of your resume.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jenny. I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for the presentation. Really enjoyed it. For anyone looking for any more information, please reach out to Jenny if you need to. As well, check out our job board. We have lots of jobs posting there each week, as well as we do have job posting each week on our socials called Work Wednesday. So check that out, as well as our training opportunities and our wage funding opportunities as well. So check those out on our website, and hopefully see you back at the next webinar. Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks, Jace. Thank you, everyone.